What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets post-game show here with your hosts, Zach and CP. We are talking about a very infuriating, frustrating, confusing game, and we'll try to break it all down for you. I'm sure you all have a lot of comments, so please drop those comments in the live chat. We will try to dissect this game as much as we possibly can and what was going through the mind of Clay Holmes, Carlos Mendoza, and all of these New York Mets hitters that failed with runners in scoring position in what was a 7-5 loss. The New York Mets are now 45-25 on the season, while the Tampa Bay Rays improved to 37-32. Definitely appreciate everyone being here, even though this is a frustrating loss because we do break down losses as well as the wins when we spam the W's. But tonight is not one of those occurrences. Zach, how are you doing today?
Been doing great until that, what was it, the sixth inning there when Mendoza decided to go to Blackburn after Holmes put together, I thought was a good first five innings. He wasn't as sharp as normal, but he got the job done and he got through five with only 79 pitches. So you could have easily seen him go another inning or at least a few more batters. This loss is a frustrating one, as frustrating as they come, just because not only did I think the Mets hitters at times outplayed the Rays hitters, where they had ample opportunity to prove that they were better, but I also thought Mendoza outcoached Kevin Cash. I mean, I don't understand what they were doing leaving Taj Bradley in there when he was clearly struggling in that fifth inning. I mean, that could have been an inning where the Mets put together a huge number. Obviously, they get the three with the Starling Marte two-run single capped with that. But that's an inning where you look to put a ton on the board, and it was nice to see them get a couple across, but to not get as many as you want is frustrating. And then just from there, lack of situational hitting with runners in scoring position, and the bullpen outside of really it was just Garza outside Blackburn and Kranick did his job, and it was tough. It was tough to see him lose in that fashion. There's going to be games like this throughout the season. It's a long season, so we're going to win games that we're in a position like that. We're going to lose more games in a position like that, but it always sucks when it happens.
I was on mute. I'm sorry. We come here. I was going to say, we come here to vent. We come here to vent because this was a winnable game. And honestly, I think both managers played their hands very shitty, to be honest. I'm going to be very upfront. Mendoza did not have. Listen, we'll talk about the Clay Holmes. It wasn't his best game. Mendoza managing, speaking, but with Cash as well. You're talking about some situations with the Rays made 3 errors in this game. They made 3 errors and opened up the opportunities. In one inning, the Mets took advantage of those errors, right? One from Taj Bradley, and they capitalized. And then the very next half inning, the bullpen shits the bed.
Yeah.
And this is like a 2-step thing here, right? First, the decision. And let's just get into it, by the way. You know what? Before we get into it, please, everybody, welcome to the Mets postgame show. As previously introduced, I see all the Pure Adrenaline Sports Network, subscribers also joining in. Welcome. Shout out to John as well. Go subscribe to Pure Adrenaline Sports if you haven't done so already. Great in-game streams. Hit the thumbs up. Most importantly, on this stream, it definitely means a lot. Drop a like. You subscribe to the channel if you'd like. Throw in a super chat if you'd like. I definitely would appreciate that. We have a super chat in here that I want to talk about because Jonathan is here with the $5 super chat. Definitely appreciate Jonathan. Seriously, what's Mendy thinking putting Blackburn in when we'll need him in the rotation for Senga, talking about the Senga injury? And that's something that we'll definitely talk about as well because, again, Blackburn's turn in the rotation, I guess, unless we're not seeing something that this organization is supposed to be coming up against Atlanta. Maybe they wanted to get him some work in preparation of that, and that definitely backfired, and it definitely led to a loss. And Blackburn looked like he was seeing ghosts in that dugout as he was watching Max Krennic implode what he started, because those guys should have never been in the game to begin with. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I need to start this stream off by saying this, and we'll get to the offense here in just a second, because Starling Marte had himself a hell of a game. Like, of all the guys that did not produce today, Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo not coming through with runners in scoring position, Starling Marte carried this team on his back with 3 RBIs and 3 hits. But it is June 13th. Clay Holmes is around 73 innings pitched, so he's fastly approaching 100 innings, something that he hasn't really done in a long time before. And I understand that. I understand the whole philosophy of what the Mets and Mendoza were trying to do and being conservative with the innings for Clay Holmes. 79 pitches through 5 innings at this point of the season. It does not it doesn't inspire confidence from me. Like, you don't do that. You start to limit innings if you really want. Let's say in July. Let's say after the trade deadline. Not maybe that's a trade deadline, but the All-Star break. Like, you save that for later, right? You get through a very tough stretch in June when you got division rivals coming up and you need to stack wins right now. This is not the time to get cute because you got a 4-run lead. And as the broadcast was saying with Steve, who was taking over for Gary today, I guess, and Ron, they were saying this, right? Like, the Tampa Bay Rays, they're putting up 5.5 runs on average per game. They weren't just going to bend over and roll over and die because they only had 1 run going into that inning. And so I do hear your point too. Frustrations aside, games like this happen. I understand. It's a game of 162. Sometimes you win these games, sometimes you lose these games, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. I understand that. But as we see here in this graphic with the box score, this was the final line. In case you didn't get to watch the game, Clay Holmes was pitching phenomenally, honestly. He was doing his job against a pretty underrated Tampa Bay Rays lineup, I would say. 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 79 pitches, 3 hits, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, and his ERA on the season is a great 2.87, and he gets the hook from Carlos Mendoza playing the innings limit game. Listen, beginning of the season, I understood that there was going to be a point of time this season where the innings needed to be limited to try to preserve, I guess, the second half of the season / postseason when the Mets get there for Clay Holmes. I understand that full well. I just think it's a little bit too early into the season to be doing this right now. And hindsight's always 2020. That's the other thing that I'll say about my rant right now, is that hindsight's always 2020. We would never be talking about this. We wouldn't even be thinking twice. Like, we would mention it for sure because it's peculiar, but we wouldn't be talking about it for 20 minutes on end, right? If the Mets go out there and win this game, if Paul Blackburn and Max Krennic get their jobs done, and the offense scores with the plethora of opportunities that they had. I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of the move. I don't think a lot of Mets fans are probably a fan of the move, and that's just what I have to say about that decision, that situation.
Yeah, situations. It's a tough one to look at. 2020 hindsight. Obviously, you wish he went to Holmes in that top of the 6th, and it makes sense in theory. You want to limit the innings, and you also want to get Blackburn some more. You want to get him some live at bats before his start, so it's not just he's going out there cold with what would it be, 9-10 days off between appearances. So it all makes sense, but in that situation, it almost made no sense in the fact that Clay Holmes was dealing, and at least you go batter to batter. You at least give him that chance to get through that top of the 6th. The meat of that Rays order, and they did their job tonight. That is an underrated team. No one's really talking about them in that lineup. In years past, you're talking about the Rays pitching, their plethora arms to just throw out there in abundance where they don't have the overwhelming power in the rotation, but now they're able to go back to a traditional 5-man rotation without an opener, and their bullpen is dominant. Tonight, outside of Orze, former Met, they locked us down, and the Mets had ample opportunities, more than a few times where they just didn't come up, and then a few times where you're crushed because balls should have dropped or found their way into the seats and they didn't. So at the end of the day, it's just a rough game, and you hope it doesn't impact future wins or outcomes in games where they're deciding to go to the bullpen and playing the pitch count this early in the season, because we are only halfway through June. That's something you expect later in the season, like August, September, but to have it rear its head here in the middle of June is interesting and head scratching at the same time.
It's too early, man. It's
Yeah,
too early. I'm sorry.
way
Like
too early.
I know that there's a pitch count. And I'm sure, listen, in all fairness to Mendoza, I'm sure that this is above his pay grade as
Mm-hmm.
well. Right? Because this probably is coming from the top from David Stearns. I would
Yeah,
say that this is a front office decision. This is an analytical decision that goes into whatever math is being done from the front office perspective. And Mendoza probably, right? I'd like to think that Mendoza has like his fair share of say in
he
all the
does.
in-game decisions. But with something like this, I'm going to ask you actually, because I think that this is a front office decision. What do you think? Is this a Mendoza decision or a front office decision? What do you think?
I think it's a front office decision. It's something that comes down from the front office. Jonathan just said, Mendy said it was a pitch count with Holmes. But I also think Mendoza in game scenario, he has the ability to override that. I think Mendoza's gained that level of trust with David Stearns and everyone up there in the front office to pivot and say, no, we're going with Holmes, at least batter to batter. This isn't all on you. I have to make a call what I see with my guys on the field. And Holmes, while he, like we said, he wasn't super sharp tonight, he was getting the job done outside of the Arenada, whatever, however you pronounce his last name, his home
Yeah,
run, Aranda, his home run. Outside of that, he looked good tonight. He did his job, and it was efficient. At times he ran that pitch count up, but to be at 79 pitches through 5 innings, you expect him to at least get a couple batters there in the top of the sixth. And not only that, it gives Paul Blackburn, someone who is traditionally a starter, is allowed more time to prepare and get himself ready. It allows him that. Allows him that extra, 5-ish minutes to get ready, where he didn't have that. And it doesn't sour my thoughts on Paul Blackburn. We kind of all knew what he was coming to the season. He's not a world burner, but he's someone who can eat innings and keep you in games. Tonight he didn't have it, and I think it was partly because obviously he didn't have it, but also he had to rush to get ready. He's in a position that he's not normally in, coming out of the bullpen on somewhat short notice, so who knows how long he was getting ready. You expect someone like that to be able to take their time and really ramp up instead of just kind of getting thrown into the thick of it.
Well, I think a lot of people are also questioning why it was Paul Blackburn. Like, if they were going to go to the bullpen and if that was inevitable, then that's fine. But why not put in a guy like Brazaban? You know what I mean? I think they
Mm-hmm.
were warming up Brazaban. I didn't really see it. I must have missed it when they were warming him up. And I guess maybe there's a bullpen camera angle. But why are you putting in a guy like Blackburn in that? Listen, in that situation. But listen, like a 4-run lead at that point with the way the Mets have been playing as of recent, like you would think that lead at that point
Would
is
hold,
kind of
yeah.
like more or less safe. But like this is the major leagues. This is the Tampa Bay Rays we're talking about. Like they're a good team. They're an underrated team. I know they're only 37 and 32, but they're a good team, man. And they put up runs in a hurry. I don't know, man. For me, I'm okay with Paul Blackburn, personally speaking. I'm okay with Paul Blackburn entering that game in that situation. But what I would have rather had happen was make the pitch limit, define it, right? And make it a pitch count limit that we've seen before. Let's say 85. Give Clay Holmes the first batter of that inning.
Mm-hmm.
Let him hopefully at that point retire the first batter of the inning, and maybe he doesn't retire that batter. Maybe he goes ahead and lets up a walk, or it's a base knock, whatever. But at
Mm-hmm.
least let him start that inning, see how it goes, and then put in whatever reliever you want to put in which in this case is Paul Blackburn. But listen, no excuses for Paul Blackburn because this guy should be able to preserve a damn 4-run lead. I'm sorry, 4 hits given up. There was 4 runs credited to him, 4 hits given up for him. He induced a really big out, which was a pop out when he got into a jam. But that was a really bad pitching performance. And Max Kranick too. Like there's blame for this game to go around everywhere. Like from
Mm-hmm.
Mendoza, from the offense as
Mm-hmm.
in its entirety, and we'll talk about the offense here in just a second. From Paul Blackburn
Mm-hmm.
to Max Kranick, and Max Kranick
Mm-hmm.
really hasn't even before he got sent down. Even before he got sent down, I don't think that he was looking too good. Like, he was so, you know what I mean? It wasn't the Max Kranick
Mm-hmm.
of April that we were seeing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's a concerning factor there. And that's exactly why when we talked about the post game, before yesterday, we were talking about the reports saying that they were looking for high leverage relievers already. And this is coming out in June because, like, I don't know what Daniel Nunes is up to. I don't know what they view him as. I don't know how ready he is, but like, I hope he's ready soon because this
Mm-hmm.
team could use a guy like Daniel Nunes, especially maybe in that situation where you don't quite trust him in high leverage situations, but you'll put him in with a
Mm-hmm.
4-run lead in the early innings and see if he's able to limit the walks, in which he wasn't able to do so in his short stint the first time around in the major leagues this year. So something has to be figured out. I'm gonna just say this is a one-off game and we'll bounce back, regroup tomorrow. But damn, I don't care if this is a loss because losses happen. We're gonna watch plenty of more losses this season. Make no mistake about it. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
the way in which you lose makes me angry sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
this one made me angry, right? You had a fantastic inning, right? When it was almost squandered, bases loaded, nobody out. And, I believe it was
Alonzo.
McNeil and Alonzo
Yeah.
couldn't get the job done. And then Starling Marte comes through with his 3rd hit of the game, a really clutch hit, and it makes it 5-1. And it was like, all right, we're fine. I thought that I was going to be mad about it still being 3-1 instead of 5-1. But
Mm-hmm.
Marte came through, and then they gave up 6 runs in the very next half inning. So it was frustrating, man. It wasn't really the loss that frustrated me, right? If they
How they
lost in a
got there.
respectable manner, that's fine. But like, there's so many things that you can point to where it's like, this is another game. And these 25 losses the Mets have, there's been a lot of these games, right? Within those 25 losses that it just feels like, damn, one more hit with runners in scoring position when the Mets were 3 for 11 or 3 for 12, and they could have been 4 for 11, 4 for 12, would have got the job done, right? And just little decisions like that. Baseball's a game of inches, and that's why I love it. But sometimes if you're on the losing end of it, like
Oh.
tonight, it could be damn frustrating, Zach. It could be damn frustrating.
Yeah, and speaking of inches, I mean, you can't not talk about what happened with Soto in the bottom of the eighth there. I mean, he had himself a nice at bat, and he drove one to the wall that was a hit of the ages. Like I thought. I mean, I was on my knees ready to celebrate, and instead I was burying my head in my carpet because it just fell short, and that was one that came off the bat and expected batting average of 990. So I mean that's something you expect to find its way into the seats or at least find some open grass, and it just didn't. And then just none of the big guys were able to get it done after that. I mean, Alonso had himself a double tonight, which I think produced a run. He scored off of that after the Alonso error, and it just he didn't come through in the top of the order with Lindor, and Nimmo didn't come through either. And it was tough to see guys that have been coming through clutch over the past 20 plus games did not show up tonight, and that's something you expect of them. So hopefully that's it's a one off, like you said, and they're able to bounce back tomorrow and get things going early with probably the toughest pitcher will face of the series in Drew Rasmussen, at least in my eyes. So it it. it I'm at a loss for words, really, because it's just frustrating because they had ample opportunities, even in the bottom of the ninth. I mean, they had the opportunity to at least put one across, if not multiple, and tie or win the game, but they couldn't,
Um,
and that is what it is.
2 for 16 is not acceptable. I'm sorry. It's
Two
not
for
it's not gonna
16.
do it.
Jeez, that's how much it was.
It's not gonna do it. It's not
Yeah.
gonna do it. You know what I mean? It's not gonna do it. I thought Soto put that in the upper deck when I first saw the bat
Oh, me
leave the
too.
ball and the angle. I thought that was upper deck,
Oh, that was.
especially with how excited. I mean, we've had our fair share of moments so far this season with Gary, like getting us too excited for a warning track shot. But now Steve, and I was just like, dude, 111. What are we using here? What kind of balls are we using here? I don't know. Like it's weird. Um, but that one really fooled me. I was quite upset because I thought that was a signature Juan Soto moment, game tying home run off the bat. I mean, he hit the piss out of it. Really,
Oh
he
my
did.
god, he
It
smoked
was
that one.
he smoked it. I mean, there's nothing else that you can do if you're Juan Soto, and you just got to be shaking your head and scratching your head at that of why that ball didn't leave the yard. So, couple of bad luck moments in this game as well. Let's. And by the way, didn't I mention last show, not last show, but maybe the show before that, that
Hmm.
this is a Justin Garza fan account, a Stan channel for Justin Garza. Justin Garza does a great job posting zeros in his 2 innings of relief.
Hmm.
Looked like the only competent bullpen arm the Mets had out there tonight. And he did have some traffic on the bases, but he did a good
Hmm.
job mitigating that traffic and not allowing those runners to score and keeping this team in the ball game to maybe come back in the later innings, in which they tried to, but they came up short. Justin Garza, maybe put
Good.
Justin Garza in the game in that 6th inning instead of Paul
Maybe.
Blackburn. How about we do that? How about we do that? So
It's a learning moment for Mendy. You know, he's
it
gonna
is.
have to learn how to use his bullpen in the way it's constructed now. And I know someone brought up that Brazaban. I know you brought it up. Brazaban maybe pitching that 6th inning. Someone else brought up Brazaban pitching yesterday, but he only threw a couple pitches, if I'm not mistaken. So this is it's a learning moment for Mendy. I mean, it's only his second season of as a manager, you know, halfway through it at that. So he's still learning how to properly balance what to do with his starters, especially guys that are on pitch limits or innings limits, and who to bring in where, and probably getting some sort of feedback from the front office in who to throw where, because they probably wanted Blackburn to get some innings there, or at least, you know, get out there in some fashion to get ready for this next start. So it's a learning moment, and there is one positive to take from this game, one positive, and that's it, and that's the
What
fact
kind of positive can we take
the
from this
Mets
game? Tell
didn't
me.
die. The Mets didn't really have to eat into their bullpen, whereas the Rays really did. I mean, they
Sure.
did throw a lot of arms out there, and
They did.
even Fairbanks threw a lot of pitches in that bottom of the ninth to get through. What was the bottom half? You know, Pete Alonso in the bottom half of the order after him. So, you know, that's hopefully a point to come up later in the series where the Mets can, you know, capitalize on that. Maybe facing some weaker pitchers and having their A guys out there. So you
That
always try to find the silver lining, but you know that stuff does come into play. It really does.
That note on Brazaban, that's what made him so good, especially earlier on this season. And the broadcasting booth did a good job hammering this point home, is that he's appeared in back-to-back games so much this season and has had success in back-to-back games outside of the one blown save that he had, I believe, giving up a game-tying home run in which the Mets won an extra innings. I'm forgetting what series that was. If anybody remembers, please put it in the chat because I'm forgetting it right now. But
It was against the Cardinals
it's
that was there,
Cardinals. That's right. There
and
you go.
Lindor walked it off on basically the next
Exactly.
pitch
They won
after
the
from
game
top of
anyways.
the
But
bottom
like
half
he's
there.
been so good and he's done it so much in back-to-back games that like I don't like maybe Mendoza's trying to shy away from that now. Like I don't know what it is. But shout out to Jonathan here too. Definitely a Stearns call, talking about whether it's a front office call or a Mendoza call by pulling Clay Holmes early into the ball game at only 79 pitches. Mendy kind of laid back, doesn't even get ejected a lot. He follows orders. Stearns knows something. Trust in him, I guess. You know what? I don't know if listen. he's kind of a laid back manager too, right?
Mhm.
That's something that a lot of fans had an issue with Buck Showalter as well, especially panning to the dugout when the Mets were getting hit by pitches left and right, in which they are doing so as well this season. I don't. They got hit. One person got hit today. I forgot who it was. Was it
It was
McNeely?
Pete.
It was Pete. It was Pete after he got
Ball
brushed
magnet.
back early. Of course it was. Of course it was Pete. But he got hit in the foot today. I don't know if I want to make a big deal out of that, but there's definitely a working dynamic between Mendoza and Stearns, and I just don't know exactly. I'm sure Mendoza has pull, right, in the decisions
100%.
that he made, 100%, right? Like, I just don't know what the working dynamic is. I don't think any fan definitely, I don't think any fan knows that. But shout out to
No,
Jonathan
no.
as well, saying keep the mustache, CP. I definitely appreciate that. I intend for it to stay. I intend for it to stay. I know Ray also in the chat likes the mustache, so I appreciate that. But listen, let's talk about the offense. Let's talk about the offense because I think that we've kind of exhausted, 27 minutes into this topic about Clay Holmes, this, that, and the other decision. The bullpen was brutal, whatever. But this offense has as much blame as this pitching, I would say,
100%.
in this loss. I mean, 2 for 16 thrown in scoring position. Lindor takes a 1 for 4. I mean, he had opportunity late in the game. Lindor had I think it was a 3-pitch strikeout where he just did not look
Yeah.
good against Uceta. Like, he did not look good at all.
Wasn't ready for the
And
fastball.
yeah, it's 0. Nimmo takes it over 5, 3 strikeouts. He looked lost at the plate too. I think Juan Soto, he goes 1 for 3 today, had a nice opposite field single, but he definitely should have been 2 for 4 at the home run, the game tying home run. He got cheated out of
Ugh.
that for whatever reason that is, but he still gets the RBI with the bases loaded walk. Alonso, aside from the double, also in the hit by pitch, he also looked like a little bit, I guess, I don't know, guessing because not guessing. He put together okay at bats, but that at bat with bases loaded and nobody out with him striking on that high fastball, like, Pete, what are you doing? Stop expanding the zone. Uh, the star of this game from the lineup perspective is Starling Marte, and I think that he
100%.
definitely deserves his flowers because he's been doing so well over the past few weeks. He's been doing so well when his numbers called 3 for 4, 3 RBIs, a walk. He was the only reason that this team was in the game. Let's be honest. He was the only reason this team was in this ball game. You know what I mean? And this could
Yeah.
have been a larger deficit because if not for Starling Marte coming through with bases loaded 2 outs, when the 2 guys before him, McNeil and Alonso, couldn't get the job done with bases loaded and nobody out, we're talking about a different ball game at that point and maybe not getting our hopes up, which might have been better at that point. But good to see Starling Marte having success. I want to talk about Ronnie Mauricio.
Talk about
He's not ready, bro.
the
He's not
bottom of
ready,
the
bro.
lineup as a whole. No, he's not. He
He's not
was put
ready.
into this position when he wasn't ready because of necessity,
Not
and
ready.
it's the whole bottom of the lineup. And we've talked about this in streams past, where it's like they didn't produce at all tonight. I mean, between Taylor, Mauricio, Alvarez, and Beatty, who came in for Taylor later in the game, they took an offer. The 4 of them took an offer. And I think Tyrone Taylor and Beatty were the only 2 to find their way on base via the walk, and Alvarez by the error on the fly ball that kind of gave us a little bit of hope when I guess I wish it didn't. But that's somewhere the Mets need to improve, and hopefully when Vientos is back, they will be able to improve there and be able to stretch out this lineup, because when the big guys aren't getting it done at the top of the order, you expect guys in the bottom of the order to get it done, and Marte did that tonight. But outside of him, there was nothing behind him to follow up, because even on your best nights, your 1 through 4, your 1 through 5 aren't always going to get it done. It's going to be the guys in the bottom half of the order that are pulling through and carrying some of the load. And you would hope guys like Alvarez and whoever's playing third base, whether it's Beatty, Mauricio, or Vientos, are able to do that. And they weren't able to do that. And they really haven't been able to do that at all this season. They haven't had a bottom half of the order, and that's some a point of concern for the Mets, and a point somewhere where they need to improve on. Whether that's through their own system with guys, kicking into another gear once they're healthy, or at a certain point in the season, hopefully sooner rather than later, or if it's externally, you got to go that route. So hopefully they can figure that out sooner rather than later, because that will cost them ball games, and it will continue to cost them ball games when the guys at the top of the order aren't going to get it done, which they didn't tonight.
I would say it's somewhat hard, and it's been hard with some of the other guys that have been struggling this season, like a Brandon Nemo before, Mark Vientos before, to exactly pinpoint what's been wrong. With Ronnie Mauricio, it's as clear as day. There's no reason for any
He's not ready.
pitcher to throw him anything other than a breaking ball. Like, why even throw him a fastball if you know that if you can locate your off speed, he's going to look silly if he even swings at it? Like, this guy is watching and I think in his second to last at bat, this is also a situation with runners in scoring position. I'm surprised they didn't pinch hit for him at the end of the game, to be honest. I think that I would honestly, if this team loves veterans, which they've shown to prioritize, right, already,
Jared Young.
it's just to a certain degree, right? I would have think that they would
He
have
had
just
the
put
helmet
in
on at one point.
Jared Young. I think they just would, and that's sad to say. That's sad to say. I'm happy they gave Mauricio the opportunity. I'm not advocating for Jared Young in that ball game at all, but I'm just surprised that they didn't do it. Um, Mauricio needs to get sent back down. He does. I'm sorry, because there's no learning in between any of his at bats. If he was like actively making adjustments at bat to at bat, I'm like, okay, different story. But the pitcher, this pitcher, any pitcher really against Mauricio this season so far, it's a clear game plan. It's a clear game plan. Sneak a fastball in there for a strike, pitch one, which he usually takes because he's not ready for it, and just feed him off-speed pitches every other pitch, and he will swing, and he will look like a fool up there. I'm sorry. I think the kid is talented. I really do. I know that he's probably still trying to come back from this injury and whatever, this, that, and the other. He's not ready. He's not ready. That's a concern. That's a concern for sure. Alvarez also, I mean, nothing else to say about Alvarez. I think somebody set up in the chat here, Jonathan, with on a super chat, trade package Alvarez and Marte. I don't think they're trading Alvarez. I don't think they're
I don't think
trading
they're
Alvarez.
trading Marte at that. You know,
I think they could. I think they could trade
they
Marte.
could move him, but I don't think he
I think
goes.
they could move him.
He could. He's movable. I don't think he gets moved. And there's no trading Alvarez at this point. One, you're trading him at a lower value than what he actually is worth. You know, because he is underperforming, and not only underperforming, he doesn't look good up there. That's someone you want to hold. You want to that's someone you want to ride until they die, until he's proven he doesn't have anything left. Because if you're trading him at his worst, you're making a bad trade. If you're trading him as best, you're hamstringing the team because they don't really have anyone to follow up behind him. So there's other guys on this team that are probably better positioned to be sent down or traded. You know, Acuna and Mauricio probably, you know, one being sent down, the other being traded. And they're in an interesting position where they need to find a way to have someone fill in the bottom half of that order. And you hope it's Vientos. Hopefully he's back soon. And we've gotten good reports, so hopefully he's there. And even if he's struggling, he's going to be having better at bats than Mauricio did tonight. You know, you're not throwing him sliders there in that position. You know, if he gets a slider that Mauricio got on those last two pitches, both looked like they were spinners. I mean, neither of them looked really competitive. I mean, he would have gotten the barrel out in front of those and parked one in the seats for what would have been a magical walk-off win. So you just need to find a way to survive, and survive is an interesting way to put it when you have a team that's 20 games over 500, but survive with Mauricio up here because he is uncompetitive. You know, at this point, his at bats are terrible. You know, he looked good on the road trip at times, like he was starting to make adjustments, and then since he's been back home against the Nationals now in this first game against the Rays, it's been brutal. It's been brutal. He doesn't know what he's looking for up there. And that's not his fault, honestly. You know, with all this negativity we've been talking about Mauricio, it's not his fault because he was called up way too early in a position of need for the Mets. And I think you almost have to consider sending him down just for someone else at this point. I think they have other guys that can fill that hole. And even if it's throwing Acuna out there in place of him or just Beatty every day, I mean,
Dude,
you
I
got to
was
do
just gonna say
something.
that.
Because
I was gonna say
Acuna,
that I have more confidence in Acuna at this point than Mauricio.
even when his at bats are uncompetitive, so to speak, you know, he's putting the ball in play, and when he puts the ball in play, anything can happen because of his speed. So that's just a different aspect of the game that you have with someone like Acuna, who's not good at this point, versus Mauricio, who's unable to put the ball in play and unable to differentiate and pick up pitches out of the pitcher's hand.
Yeah. Um, Everybody, please keep dropping those live chat comments. I definitely appreciate that. We got probably about 5 more minutes on this stream. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. Definitely appreciate it. If you enjoy these breakdowns, win, lose, whatever, we're here. We're here to talk about it. You know, you guys have a space to vent about it, and we appreciate you all being here. For me, I know you talked about like silver linings and positives to take away from this. The positive, the two positives that I take away from this game are not actually even happening. There's nothing about this game that I'm taking. It's outside of the game, right? Uh, Juan Vientos is on the fast track back, which is great. And it was actually just announced before we went live, that
Yeah.
Kodai Senga has a low grade hamstring strain. So he will be evaluated in 2 weeks' time. And he is in a similar situation to Mark Vientos, in which we think that, listen, knowing Senga, like you said last time, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to take it easy. He's going to take it slow, right? He's not going to rush back, and the Mets are certainly not going to rush him back. So evaluating in 2 weeks means, honestly, I probably think he takes another 2 weeks after that. So we're
And
probably still
probably
looking at a
another
month's time. You know
uh,
what I
uh
mean?
yeah, probably a start down in AAA just to get his footing under him
Yeah.
to see how he performs. And I was able to push off, like I guess it was his left leg that was the hamstring strain, or able.
I think it was his right leg
It
because
was, so it's the push off.
I think it was the push off one. Yeah.
So
I
either
think
way,
it
if it's
was,
his
right? 'Cause that's
landing
what
or if it's push off, he needs to figure out how to land or push off on something that is compromised, and will be for the rest of the season, because hamstrings are tricky, as if you don't play sports, or if you're not someone that is tuned into sports on a year-round basis. Hamstrings are tricky, and that's something that can rear its ugly head through and through for
yeah.
the rest of the season until you are 100%, because coming back in a couple weeks doesn't mean you're 100%. It just means you're comfortable,
Yeah.
because there's almost no 100% with a hamstring in the short term. It's more of a long term thing that you kind of manage. So,
That and the
that is,
calf too,
and
which
the
what he
cat,
dealt with yesterday. It's
exactly.
terrible.
And then another silver lining. I mean, there's a silver lining and a negative to talk about with guys that are making rehab starts. Shomanaya, I believe it was last night, had himself a nice game in Brooklyn, which was good to see. We've talked about in abundance how it really doesn't matter how they perform down in rehab assignments to a certain extent, but it was nice to
Yeah.
see Mania go out there and deal. But then on the flip side,
Don't say the flip side. I don't want to hear this name right now. This is not what I want to hear.
Frankie
I'll throw another
Montas.
positive at you after you talk about Frankie Montas. I'll throw another positive at you, actually.
Frankie Montas had himself a rough outing in AAA. A rough outing in AAA. I mean, he barely got out of that first inning for them. So that's someone that's going to maybe live down there for the time being. Because I
8
mean,
earned runs, Zach. 8 earned runs for Frankie Montas.
yeah, 8 runs. I think it was a few walks as well. And just he didn't look like a major league pitcher, to be honest. So maybe that's just him working on stuff, but doesn't look good. And if, even with Blackburn's performance today, I trust him more than Montas at this juncture.
Easily.
Oh
Easily.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think David Stearns is kind of scratching his head at this point too. I mean, they talk very highly of Frankie Montas, but like, I get it. It's only AAA and these are rehab starts, but like, there's a certain point where it gets to, okay, this is concerning. Even if it's a rehab start, this guy is not doing well at all. Um, so okay, negatives is this game overall, plus Frankie Montas stinking it up in his rehab starts. Positives is that we get to watch another baseball game tomorrow and forget
Mm-hmm.
about today, hopefully, with a win.
Win a homestand.
Positives is that, what was that?
Win a homestand. Go out there, win
Right. Yeah, correct.
tomorrow, win the homestand. That's it.
Right.
Anything after that, I would
Um,
like, I'd be happy with, because you go 4-2 in a homestand, you're happy with that. You want to go 5-1 or 6-0, but they win tomorrow. I call it a successful one.
let me give you I'm going to try to count on one hand some positives. Starling Marte today, Clay Holmes today, Kodai Senga. I'm going to lump Kodai Senga and Vientos in the same
Mm-hmm.
category. That's 3. Shamanaya 4.
Hmm.
Brooks Raley is going to be starting his rehab assignment, I believe, in the next week, is what's been reported. That's number 5. I counted on one hand. That's 5 positives in a 7-5 loss on this post game stream. Um,
That's an
yeah,
interesting
Brooks Raley.
talking
That's
point.
going to be a huge, huge arm to potentially get back as well. And so I'm very excited about that. So, you know, take what we can get at this point with this kind of loss. It was a frustrating loss. This loss is going to happen. It was preventable, easily preventable. Um, Frankie Montas is probably, I don't expect anything at this point from him. We'll see what kind of contributions he makes when he comes back eventually, whenever the Mets decide that. But other reinforcements are also back. Manaya. I think Senga, like All-Star game is, I think, July 15th. I don't think we see Senga until after the All-Star break to be a little bit
It's
more
that 4 or
on,
5 weeks at this point. He'll come back. I guess it'll be July 20th around then, give or
I would
take.
say 5 weeks. Gave him 5
Yeah.
weeks.
That's fair. I mean, that, and I've said this. I think we said it yesterday, and I said this on Twitter a bunch. This is not something that's going to end the Mets season because how good, even with how good Senga has been, he hasn't been dominant. He's been good. He hasn't been dominant. So if this is something that torpedoes the Mets season or sends them down the chute, it means this team wasn't built to last. It wasn't as
Yeah.
good a built team as you would like, which I don't think is the case. This team is so strong, and with the reinforcements coming back, Manaya, we're leaving Montas out of the equation. Manaya, Vientos, Rayleigh, hopefully around the same time as Senga, I would guess. I don't know how the ramp up for a reliever goes. It's probably a little bit faster than it would be for a starter because they don't have to throw as many innings as a starter would. So you hope to see him sooner rather than later. There's positives to take from what's going on in Mets land outside of the loss, outside of the game today, and there's the team's going to be better in a month time. With how good they've been performing, and if they can. I'm not going to say last or survive this next month without these guys, but if they can go out there and do better than tread water, I'm not expecting them to go and burn, the Braves, the Phillies. We have the Brewers. We have another Subway Series. We have a lot of tough games coming up. If they
Yeah.
can go out there and end these games with more wins than losses, I'm comfortable with where we are because we only are going to get better, and we're only going to get better after the trade deadline when there's going to be even more reinforcements coming in from where we don't know, and we will discuss that at a later time. But this team's in a good position outside, regardless of the loss. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be something you look back at maybe for a couple days. Hopefully they can erase it from our memories tomorrow with a big win. But this is something that it stings in the moment, but it's not a defining moment for this team. At least I hope not.
Oh, day game tomorrow. A little, I guess,
4 o'clock.
afternoon game, 4:10, 4 o'clock. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll see, whether depending for me if I'm able to do any sort of streams. I should be able to do a pregame stream tomorrow. We'll
Same.
see.
I'm no good for a post, but I'm definitely good for a pregame.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll coordinate with Rob as well. He couldn't make either streams today. Apologize about no pregame. I was unavailable. Rob was unavailable, so I do apologize about that. But we'll see if we can get you all covered for tomorrow. But um, oh yeah, this is another super chat that I wanted to get to before we get out of
I
here.
heard that name a bunch.
I like this. I mean, I've been talking about Finnegan for a while. I know that he hasn't really been like his former all-star self, the last couple of seasons, or the last season namely, but
Hmm.
he reminds me a lot of Ryan Stanek in some ways. In the major way that he's a predominant two-pitch pitcher, first and foremost. But you know, would I be like head over heels that we got Kyle Finnegan?
No.
No, but like I would take him on this team in a heartbeat for sure. I think a
Hmm.
change of scenery could be really good for Kyle Finnegan. So I would inquire about Kyle Finnegan. And
Yeah.
this is a guy that I talked about in this past offseason before he found his way back onto the Nationals, that I was kind of looking at as a possibility.
Hmm.
I talked about in one of my videos. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Bullpen's going to be for sure a thing that the Mets look at the deadline.
Yeah, I think just touching on that quick. I mean, for me, Kyle Finnegan doesn't move the needle. I think he's an arm you can place in this pen, and you can expect to get some good innings out of. But for me, what I'm looking for is a guy that's going to be able to fill the bottom of that at the end of that bullpen. You know, someone that's going to be a true setup man. I know Reed Garrett's been great, but I like to use him and Barazaban more in that Swiss Army knife role where they can come in and get you guys out of jams at any moment and any moment in time. You know, because Garrett and Brazaban have both been great with inherited runners, and I would like a true setup man to pair with Stanek. And, you know, you hope Rayleigh can be that, but we don't know how much you can expect from him coming back from the Tommy John surgery. So I expect them to go big in that front. I would, at least I would hope so, because I think it's enough playing around with it and talking about getting the big guy. It's time to go out and get them at a trade deadline where it could prove pivotal in a playoff push. Because, you know, I love Stanek and I think he's a great pitcher, but he's a bit shaky right now. I think he will be good, and I want someone to pair with him who can shoulder the load when he is struggling like he is at this moment in time. And before you go, an interesting stat I saw: Stanek, since Alvarez has been back, has been brutal. His numbers with Sanger or Terens behind the plate were great. Since Alvarez has been back there calling the pitches, it has not been good. And that's someone who I thought called a pretty good game in Alvarez. So I don't know if that's a mental thing with him. Maybe you look to shift more in the Terens front later in games, especially when Stanek's out there. But it's interesting to see as someone you viewed highly of as a defensive catcher, someone that's calling the pitches back there for these pitchers, someone that's been raved on by a couple years ago by Scherzer and by DeGrom, guys that really gave shining words about someone that they relied on back there. So it's interesting to see where he kind of falls now, where his numbers aren't so great, or at least the pitcher's numbers aren't so great with him receiving the ball back there.
I did see that as well.
Yeah.
I first of all, we'll talk about late game situations. I was kind of surprised to see him run for himself when he
Mm-hmm.
got lucky on that double via an error with the two outfielders kind of converging together
Mm-hmm.
there, not really communicating. So that was one thing. But yeah, that's something that I'm going to keep an eye out on too, because I didn't like I forgot who I saw that from. I think it was Carson from Mets Weekly, actually. I think I
Yeah,
saw that
maybe.
tweet from Carson pointing that out. But that was interesting. I don't really know what to make of it. I haven't
Yeah.
really done a deep dive, but something to watch out for sure. Um, Ricardo, we're gonna be talking about the deadline coming up. I honestly
It's a weak
can't
trade
really give
deadline,
you, yeah,
in
like
my opinion.
there's a lot of bats to get and to have at this
It's
deadline. I feel like,
better
but
for
like
the
I,
pitching front. And I think teams to look
yeah,
out for are what the Red Sox do on the bat front and the pitching front. Maybe we're calling an old name, an old guy that comes up to the tune of Leonard Skinner, Jake
oh,
DeGrom.
oh.
That's a team
Really?
that's
You think that
below.
you think they reunite?
I don't know. We'll see. But that's a team
I
that's
don't know, man.
kind of below 500. I don't think they go that route, but it's a deadline that's interesting where there's not many bats available. It's more so a good deadline for pitcher needy teams, which I don't think the Mets necessarily are. So it's going to be interesting once we hit July, where the Mets eyes are going to shift. And I wouldn't be uh, not expecting something to happen between now and then, because Stearns has pulled the trigger early before. He did it last year with Terens and then Phil Maton from the Rays. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stearns decides to pull the trigger on something early on a deal he likes. And it might not be a big name that you're looking for, but it could be someone that proves pivotal in what will be a playoff push for the Mets down the stretch.
Listen, my eyes are on the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah,
Like, that's the one team where if they keep on sliding, I think they're actually winning against the Padres today. But if they
yeah.
slide,
Josh
that's
Naylor.
the one team that you can call up potentially to get a bat.
Yeah.
outside of the Red Sox for Duran, which is a whole different ball game with the contract, as we all know. I'm gonna have to do some research because again, I think that it's still too early for some fringe teams to actually decide what they're gonna do with some bats. Like,
Yeah.
where are the Pirates at right now? Let me just I don't watch
They're
Pirates
lost
baseball.
cause.
So like another team that you could potentially inquire about a bat or two. Um, a
Rockies, you're
couple
getting
other
nothing
teams,
from.
right? Well, I don't know who on the Rockies would you inquire about.
I don't even know. I mean, maybe
I don't know
McMahon
about
to play
McMahon.
DH.
I don't know if I mean, he's not having a
He's
great
not something.
year, but
Yeah, he's not having a great year. There's not a lot of bats out there. It's a weird deadline that we're coming up on. Oddly enough, there's not going to be.
Oakland is a good one. Oakland's a good one, I
Who
would
would you
say.
even trade for? Could you maybe make a push for Brent Rooker as a for a DH? I
Not
don't know
with
if
the
they're letting
extension
go
he
of
just
him.
signed. Not with the extension he just signed. I don't know. That's the first thing that popped into my head too, but I was just like, he just signed that extension. I forgot about that.
I don't know what Tyler
Um,
Soderstrom looks like. He's having himself a really good year.
it's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah, again, we don't have
Lot
that
to think
answer for
about.
you. I don't have that answer for you, at least Ricardo, right now, but that's something that I'm gonna definitely be researching and just seeing because I think it's gonna take time anyways. Like Zach said, like if there's a move for Stearns early on in, this season, but way before the trade deadline, like we saw Phil Maton last year, it's gonna be a lesser name, right?
Hmm.
It's not gonna be something that, somebody that wows you, I would say. The big bulk of action is going to happen closer to the trade deadline, especially
Hmm.
as teams get more familiar, right, with where they're at and also are able to leverage other teams against each other to drive the price up, which the Mets are going to
Hmm.
have to be also cognizant of when they make these moves. I don't want Luis Robert Jr. I was willing to take a chance on him earlier this
A
season
couple months
before
ago,
I
yeah.
months ago when it was a fresh start to the season. Maybe he turned it around. Cedric Mullins,
Don't know how much he moves the needle above Tyrone Taylor.
correct. His runners and scoring position numbers are good, but
Uh,
like overall numbers, basically you're going to get Tyrone Taylor production, which is not what we need. Duran, I would take in a heartbeat. I think
no,
that if the proper deal for him is aligned, I would take him easily, 100%. I will die on that hill, but
no.
how plausible is that? Are the Red Sox really likely to move him this trade deadline versus the offseason? Stuff like that.
If they're
Um,
looking to pick up an outfielder, it's a matter of kind of with what's available and what is out there right now. What
yeah.
are they willing to do with Brandon Nimmo with the outfield construction? Are they willing to
Mhm.
move him to center field and trade for someone that's a better suited for a corner outfield position and maybe even considering moving Soto to the left field? That's something the Mets should definitely, I'm sure Stearns is thinking about and has been looking at. So there's guys out there that can play the corner outfield positions. I think Taylor Ward in Los Angeles and then Austin Hayes in Cincinnati can both fill, right or left field. It's just a matter of where are you willing to go with Nimmo or even potentially move him to DH and leave Tyrone Taylor out there in center field. So a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of things to think about in the coming 6, 7 weeks before we hit this trade deadline, or 6 weeks, I
I
should say.
will say we had this conversation before, Zach, off air, but I will say I thoroughly believe that Nemo's
No,
any
I
chance of him
agree.
playing center field is done.
Hmm.
Um, and I would like a guy like Ward if that was a possibility because I think that he's
It
a
could be a
very
DH.
talented DH, right? Or just I mean, whatever, guy playing play the corner, whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of roster construction from within. Not only like there's a lot of decisions that other teams have to make on their teams, correct? But like the Mets still have a plethora of guys that they have to make decisions on as well. So like David Stearns has to really utilize this time. And that's probably why Ronnie Mauricio is getting so much playing time because he had a great start in his rehab games, right? This season in
Hmm.
AAA. He was killing the baseball and now he can't hit a lick at the major league level. And so it's just like the talent's there, but it's like there's just some guys that you need to make the move for. Maybe
Yeah.
Acuna is also one of them. Like there's gonna be fans in this fan base that are attached to one prospect over the
Hmm.
other.
Hmm.
and they're going to get their hearts broken because
Yeah.
the Mets are going to have to make a move. And I always agree with Rob on this statement, right? Maybe not so much in years prior, right? Going for it all, like, you know,
Last year, even
2022. Well, last year, but like 2022, even too, as well, because there was really not many great bats on the market, especially in the second half when you see in hindsight the production with like Trey Mancini versus a guy like Daniel Vogelbach. But like, this is the year right now with where the Mets are at. You need to go all in. And if that means trading a couple top 10 prospects, so be it.
mm-hmm.
So be it. I do not care. Trade Drew Gilbert, trade Mauricio, trade Acuna. I don't care.
Don't trade
You
Nolan
probably want to
McLean.
don't trade McLean. You'd probably want to keep Spro, even though he's struggling in AAA. You probably want to keep Tong. But listen, I mean, like, there's not really many untouchables in this organization at this point from an offensive standpoint.
One
Jet Williams, honestly, I feel like could also be on the block.
in
I
the
don't
right
think
move.
he's
In the
in
right
the right
move.
move, but yeah, listen, I don't think many people are off the trading block. I don't think that there's many people on the no trade list for the Mets at this
I think
point.
there's
At
three
least that's
guys.
how it should be.
Yeah, I think there's three guys: in Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, and Carson Benyai. Those are the three untouchables I see
Mm,
because the Mets, they're not going to get their center field of the future in this trade deadline. That is in triple, or I guess in high A right now with Brooklyn and Carson Benyai, and
yep.
pitchers of the future in both Jonah Tong and Nolan McLean. And I think Brandon Sproat's going to be firmly on that short list of guys that is going to be available in the right move, along with Jet Williams. Those are going to be guys that are untouchable, but if the right player is out there, they might get moved. So there's a lot of decisions to be made in that front office of who they're going to go for and what they're going to go for exactly. If they're going to try to full center field or try to center their focus around DH and improving the bats on that front. So we're in an interesting point where we're kind of leading up to that trade deadline talk, but we're still trying to get through June before we kind of get into the stretch before and after the All-Star break, where that's where the focus really gets centered on.
Yeah. I am trying to just see here. I didn't realize the Royals were so many games out.
They're in the center, right? The Central AL Central. I
Yeah,
mean, the
they're like
Twins,
11
I
and a
think,
half.
are right behind
They're
the
11 and a half
Tigers.
out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Part of
really
the
pay
Guardians,
attention
and then the
to.
Twins.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, Randy Rosarena would be great. I mean, Rosarena, like, that's great, but like, are the Mariners really gonna be
Trade,
like big sellers like this deadline? They're second in the AL West, right? They're one game under 500, which is crazy. How you can be one game under 500 and still second place in the NL West, but it's like
especially
I
with
don't
J
know.
Rod underperforming. I mean, if he's able to kick it into another gear, I mean, that guy's incredible out there. So
There's
there's a lot of
just so
teams that
much.
are on the cusp of being good or
Yeah.
being in contention, but just aren't there yet. That are going to be waiting it out until the end of July before they make a decision. So there's not a lot of ability to make moves at this point, or at least really keying in on certain guys because you try to put your eggs all in one basket and then you're kind of left with nothing because you went for someone that becomes unavailable because that team has found their way into a playoff spot. So we still had time before we can actually start talking about and figuring out who the Mets should actually focus their attention to.
Listen, I understand. Let me just bring up something real quick. I understand. Maybe not. Maybe not. Depends if they really want to shed payroll or not. Not an expensive contract by any means whatsoever. Getting up there in age, I will say that definitely is a guy that can play third base if you really need him
Cardinals?
to. Huh?
What team are you looking at?
Well, listen, this team has shown that even if they're in contention, they'll still make a move for a key piece, right? And they'll trade one of their key pieces, aka Randy Rosarena. This is the team that
Oh,
we
the
just played,
Rays.
Tampa Rays. Yeah. Yandy Diaz, man. I think Yandy Diaz could be a potential fit. And
I
I
feel
thought
like
that in
I
the
heard
offseason
that.
too.
Yeah, I thought I heard those talks potentially when Pete might have not signed that
Yeah.
Yanni Diaz could be an option for them.
He
So
smoked a couple of baseballs today, honestly,
yeah,
and
three for
one
five
Tyrone
tonight.
Taylor made a great catch on. So listen, like there's a lot of stuff that can happen, but we'll see. We'll see. A lot of stuff left. This is longer stream than I really intended it to
Yeah,
be, going on
sorry.
an hour. I definitely appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for hanging in here
A lot
with
of
us in this
feedback. It was a
brutal
great show.
loss. Yeah, great show, great stream, great interaction, engagement with all of you. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all the support. Follow on every social media platform that you can imagine, from TikTok to X to Instagram, wherever. You can find me at True Mets Talk. And that's it. I appreciate it, Zach, as well, for mustering up the strength to come onto this live stream even after the tough loss. But as we said, we'll try to get you all covered for tomorrow. We'll see what the
Yes.
schedule's looking like, weather permitting, for us,
Mhm.
for me at least. And yeah, hopefully, hoping for a bounce back game for this team that desperately needs it after a tough loss like this. But again, 20 games over 500.
Not a lot to
This
complain about.
they're fine. They're fine. All right.
Exactly.
They're fine. This has been the Mets post game show. Definitely appreciate it. We will see you all on the next stream. And let's go Mets. That's most important.
Let's go Mets.